Hi there, welcome to the Accidental Pop Star here on YouTube. My name is Ali Beg. For many years, I delved in the world of sports broadcasting. I wrote a couple of books, I wrote a blog, and I was once a member of 1990s boy band Bad Boys Inc. We were signed to A&M Records for 3 years between 1992 and 1995, and we had relative chart success across the world before we went our separate ways in the spring of 1995. My journey through this time and what was 15 minutes of fame left me questioning the type of person that I was and the type of person that I strived to be. So what's the idea behind this channel? In simple terms, I'm going to be interviewing pop stars, both past and present, about their own experiences in the industry and see if we can find common ground with their stories. For this episode, I am absolutely delighted to welcome to the Accidental Pop Star 80s icon, Nik Kershaw. Wasn't the 80s just one of the best decades for pop music? During this time, Nik Kershaw had many hits, including Wouldn't It Be Good, I Won't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, and the magnificent The Riddle. He then appeared at Live Aid at Wembley Stadium in 1985 and had another top 10 hit after that, but then things didn't quite go according to plan. So let's find out why. Please take into consideration that this interview was conducted in the summer of 2022, so the background behind me is slightly different, but I hope that doesn't spoil your enjoyment. Welcome to the Accidental Pop Star, Nik Kershaw. Hi Nick, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for coming on. It's a great pleasure to meet you. I'd actually like to go right back to the beginning, right back to the early days when you first signed to MCA. How
Yeah.
much did you get involved in meetings, planning, and how they saw your progression in the music industry?
Um, that's a good question. I guess I was quite involved. I had my, I was quite well advised externally from, I mean, obviously the people involved would have been myself, my management, um, and the record label. But I'd already got independent advice about when I signed a contract with my management anyway. So that was pretty cool. Um, so I kind of was quite aware of what was going on, and um, it happened in various stages. In fact, because the original deal was only a singles deal, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was kind of, oh, let's see how we go kind of thing, and just made a few demos, and they sort of put me in various recording studios with various producers just to see what was going to happen. But the album deal didn't come until a little bit later. But that was, yeah, there was lots of toing and froing with that. I just remember spending a lot of time in a telephone box in the middle of Essex somewhere talking to my lawyer.
Yeah.
We didn't have telephones. Um, but yeah, I think I was well advised and pretty much knew what was going on. Yeah, which
Brilliant.
I can't is not I know is not the same for everybody. It
Yeah.
wasn't the same
Yeah.
certainly then.
How did anybody actually prepare you for potentially how your life could change when it came to a public profile?
No, no,
Really?
not at all.
Okay.
Um, but I kind of I guess you kind of think you know what it's going to be like
Mm,
because you this is something that you've dreamt about your whole life, and you'll think, oh, this is actually really going to happen, and you don't consider that at all. You just think this is brilliant. I'm going to get to record my songs with the best people in the best recording studios, and I'm going to play in front of thousands of people in venues, and it's going to be brilliant. And you just think of all the great things about how it's going to be, and all those things were great, so but the other stuff, no, I don't see how you can. I mean, I know sort of places like Lipper and the Brit School and those kind of schools now. You have schools for that kind of thing now, and they do that that kind of preparation for you, and they teach you what that's going to be like and how to deal with the media and how to all those media skills and stuff. But you didn't have that back in those days, not at all. It wasn't a thing.
yeah, we were exactly the same. We had PR people, but it was almost like learning on the job.
Yeah.
It was a very, very strange situation, I have to be honest. Who was involved in the decision process that saw you release your debut single, I Won't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, which was released in September 1983?
Yeah. Um, I think you are very aware of the fact that there's a major corporation lavishing lots of attention and money on you.
Mm,
And I kind of I think at the time I didn't think that was the right choice.
okay,
It wasn't my favorite song on the album, and I
interesting.
wasn't madly keen as to how it had turned out. But I took advice on that, yeah, and the record company thought it was the right thing to do, and I didn't feel as though I had the kind of power and leverage to actually say to oppose it. I mean, I might have expressed my views to my management and stuff, but I'm not saying I got bullied into it. That wouldn't be a fair thing, but it wouldn't have been my choice. Put it that way.
Okay, we'll come on to that a little bit later. We'll sort of divulge a little bit on that later. But the song had success in Europe. It did well in Europe and it did very well beyond the UK. But in the UK, it didn't quite scrape the top 40. So why do you think that was?
I think well, it was a different time then. It really was because in those days, record companies did build careers. They kind of I don't think they expected immediate success. So really, it was an opportunity to get my profile up and to get me introduced to the to the dealerships, the people that actually sold the records. I remember doing a tour when it was released of all the record dealers. We because nobody's supposed to know which record dealers actually um, return figures to the chart returns company, but of course they did know, and we went to see them, and we shook some hands, and we had pictures taken, and all that kind of stuff. And also the radio stations and the tour, the radio stations did a lot of groundwork with that first single, and I think it got to about number 46, 47, something like that, which as far as they were concerned, or they told me at the time, was fine. No need to panic, and let's go in hard on the second single, which is what and that's how it worked out. I don't know if they were bluffing or not. I've no idea.
Yeah, because your second single was obviously Wouldn't It Be Good? Privately, did you feel any pressure to have a hit single?
No, I think I was reassured all the time that this was all going to plan, and this is absolutely going to happen. And I completely believed it. I completely believed in myself because you have to. Um, so there was never a point at which I thought, "Oh, this is all going wrong. This is not going to happen." And but I realized you realize afterwards that there were so many other people in exactly the same position you were in
Mm,
that were told exactly the same thing that completely believed it was going to happen, and it didn't.
mm,
So there was, and I know now looking back how the right TV show came at the right time, the right bit of press came out at the right time, and um, you got the right radio play at the right. It's just the things that just happened in the right order. It just all fell into place.
yeah, I guess
Um,
it's all about trusting the natural process, isn't it?
I guess so, but unfortunately, there's nothing very natural about the music business. So there's lots of lobbying and God knows what else that goes on behind the scenes that I probably wasn't even aware of.
Mm. Let me talk about about fame at this stage because with that single, with that record, you had a top four hit. So your level of fame was obviously growing at that time. Did you
Mm.
feel the growth?
Yeah, it was insane. It was very fast, and I am always have been and always will be a bit of a control freak.
Okay.
So I like to be in control of everything around me, um, and that all of a sudden it was gone. All that all that control was completely gone, and you basically had to do as you're told. Your life was not your own. You had to be in a certain place at a certain time because um, I mean, it's a cliche, but it's like literally like being on rails, and you're on a train,
Yeah.
and it's going at a certain speed, and you've got no control out of the speed it's going or where it's going. It's just going, and you're on it and you can't get off. And that's pretty much that's pretty much it. And it happened literally in a period of weeks. It was 1 minute, no, nobody had a clue who I was. The next minute I couldn't walk down the street.
Yeah.
It was I'd say literally what, a month maybe. It was like January 84, end of February 84. I couldn't walk down the street without either a disguise or a bodyguard.
Mm.
It was that quick.
Yeah, it was also very much the same for us. It didn't quite
Mm.
happen overnight, but it felt like it happened overnight. And at times I felt a little bit out of control of it. And that brings me to my next question. And I need to be sort of self-indulgent here a little bit, Nick, just to put this
Yeah,
question into context. So I remember it was after our third hit, walking on air. It was a big sort of Christmas hit, and I got a rare weekend off, and I decided I wanted to go home and watch the football with my family. So I arranged to go home, and my father worked out of Aberdeen Airport at the time, and I remember getting off the flight and getting mobbed inside the airport, which was a bit mental. And making my way to his office, and he introduced me to his business colleague as his pop star son. And I have to say, I was absolutely mortified. And I
yeah,
said to him on the way home, Dad, look, please don't do that. Because if I was a plumber or a bricklayer, would you
yeah.
introduce me like that? You wouldn't. So please don't do that. So the reason that I'm telling you that is because what I wanted to know is, in terms of your own family, how important was it for you to try and keep a sense of normality so that you could grow, not just as a person, but as an artist as well?
Um, my family were pretty cool about it. I mean, they really were. In fact, they kind of just sort of took it as it came.
Hmm,
Um, I think they were very proud.
sure.
But I remember at one point, insisting that my dad changed their telephone number because
Yeah.
they were getting insane. They were getting telephone calls from people from Germany. And my dad would spend hours on the phone to some from with Helga from Germany or
Really?
whatever,
That's
just
brilliant.
talking about my childhood to this random stranger. There were people stealing soil from my parents' back garden and putting
Okay.
it in bags and walking off, and it's like, what is going on? But they eventually came around and changed their number. But so they were pretty cool. The weird thing was old friends. That was the weird thing, because
Okay.
they completely assume that you've absolutely changed. You're a
Yeah.
completely different person,
Yeah, I
and
totally get
and
that.
and then you go back, and then they're like, "Hello, mate, how you doing?" And they're like, and they don't know how to talk to you. They don't know how to interface with you. They kind of and it's really aloof, and it's and there were a few friends that I never got back
Mm,
through during that process, and that was a real shame. I
mm.
mean, I've still got friends now that whenever I do talk to them, and then they don't want to bother me, they don't want to call me, they don't want to all this kind of stuff. I think, well,
Yeah.
please, just that I'm the same bloke.
Yeah. I
Of
totally get
course, your experiences change you and mold you, and I would have had completely different experiences to them, and I have been through something that they couldn't possibly have imagined. But
that.
but that being said, I'm still Nick from Ipswich, Northgate Grammar School for boys, and um, uh, but I lost a lot of those friends, which is a real shame.
Yeah, sadly, I kind of went through the same experiences. It was always very strange when I used to go home because people were half expecting me to be completely different, and
Yeah,
I, my mother and father said to me, they drummed it into me, even my brother, stay grounded, stay as you are. I know it's difficult, but you got to stay grounded because people are looking for any excuse to have a go if you've changed. So yeah,
yeah,
I found that whole process quite strange as well.
and it
Do you
also
go ahead?
it,
Go
but
ahead.
if I go ahead, it also it made it more difficult to make friends. I mean, it's still to a very small extent. That's true now, because there's always, when you meet someone new, they're not meeting that person, they're meeting who they think that person is, or
Yeah.
they've already got a preconceived idea of who you are. They know what you do, blah blah blah. So there's that kind of, that's a real kind of barrier to actually getting to know anybody, because they don't know how to talk to you, and you don't, you try to talk to them about what they do and stuff, but it always comes back to um
Exactly.
to who they think you are, which is, and if it's wrong in the first place, I'm not that person at all.
Yeah.
um that's really tricky, and so yeah, that's why it's quite difficult to make new friendships as well.
Yeah. Something that always used to really trouble me, not from a fan point of view, from my own personal point of view, if fans would come over and they would say to me, I love you. I absolutely love you. And I
Mm,
could never understand that. And I was like, well, you can't love me because you don't know me. I
yeah,
think what you're in love with is, I think you're in love with an image that is
yeah.
portrayed in magazines and on radio and in TV. And I used to go away, and it used to really trouble me that fans would come over and say, I love you, because you don't. And it would make me feel guilty if I, because one time I actually said to him, you don't, you're in love with an image. And I felt so guilty because I didn't want to shatter that girl's dream.
No,
But
and
I felt
that's
like I was doing
theirs.
that.
And that belongs to them.
Yeah.
That's theirs, and you jumping in and saying, because I had obviously similar situations, and I think the only way around it is just by being gracious about it, or if someone says nice things, you just kind of say thank you very much or whatever, and just let them have that, because
Yeah.
that's quite important. You don't. It's difficult to understand how important it is to them when it's not a real thing,
Yeah.
but it is a real thing
Yeah.
in there. And of course the reverse is true as well. Is that you find there's loads of people that hate you that never met,
Yeah.
that never met you. You think, what have I done?
Yeah,
You get,
exactly.
especially journalists and whatever. You say, I don't know if you found this, but you'll hear
Yeah.
some journalist, or you'll have a perfectly civil conversation with the journalist, and so see you later, and then the article comes out and you go, what the,
Yeah.
what did I say, what was the problem, why has this person got such a um why is this person hate me so much, but so the reverse is always true, yeah.
My mum and dad used to get hate mail from Take That fans because I once had a pop at Take That's first long form video in Smash Hits magazine. I said it was a load of crap. I got absolutely inundated with hate
Yeah.
mail from these fans. That was a lesson very quickly learnt. Nick, can I come back to I Won't Let the Sun Go Down on You, which you re-released? I'm wondering, did you think that was a gutsy move to re-release a record that hadn't quite had the success first time around?
No, not at the time. I mean, we really didn't. It did seem to be the obvious thing to do. I mean, I'd had two. I'd had Wouldn't It Be Good and Dancing Girls. I'd had two big
Mhm,
hits,
mhm.
and the summer was coming, and it just seemed obvious. Let's chuck it out again. I don't think anybody questioned it.
Okay.
No.
You then released the album The Riddle,
Yeah.
which obviously gave you many more hits. So I worked out here that it meant in the years 1984 and 1985, as a solo artist, you spent more time in the UK charts than any other. That must give you a great sense of pride, I guess.
It does, kind of numbers. Uh, although I still believe now, in glorious hindsight, that it was a bit mistake to release the second album so quickly.
Really? Okay.
Well, because I was, I was promoting the first one and recording the second one at the same time.
Right.
So I think the Human Racing was released in March
Hmm.
'84,
Hmm.
and the Riddle was released in November '84. And it was, and looking back, it was all completely. It was MCA Records going, well, let's strike while the iron's hot. Christmas is coming. Let's get some Christmas sales. So I was aware of that pressure to get it all done, and I was stupid enough to go along with it, But I kind of shouldn't have done. In hindsight, I don't think that was the best thing to do.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
in hindsight, how long do you think you should have waited between albums?
I think well, a year would have been a sensible thing to, even if it came out the spring of the following year, at least
Yeah.
there was that kind of that a bit of a breather, and then it didn't make the then I because what happened is I just got completely fried by the sort of middle of 1985. The third album took like another 2 years to turn up. So and that was that. I think that was the issue there, and which kind of was the beginning of the end as far as my MCA days was concerned.
Okay, let me come on to that in just a second, because again, I'd like to sort of divulge a little bit about that. But can I talk about Live Aid? Because obviously that came in the summer of '85. When did you first find out about the project?
Um, it was the January of '85.
Oh, that early.
Um, I think obviously Band Aid had been out
Hmm.
and was a huge success, and then there were a whole bunch of us going out to some kind of German um, arena pop show of some description. I think it might be called Peter's Pop Show. Um, so we were all there was a bunch of us at Heathrow Airport, and Bob Geldof it wasn't on the show, but he seemed to be there. I still don't understand to this day what he was doing there, but he was at Heathrow Airport, just basically press ganging people and just saying, look, um, we've had this single and it's been great, and we're going to put on a show, a live show. Are you interested? And at the time, it was going to be, I don't know, Hammersmith Apollo
Okay.
or Hammersmith Odeon as it was then. And it was just a gig. It was a charity gig, and so obviously it was Bob Geldof, and you don't say no to Bob Geldof. So, yeah, great. I'd love to do that. And then as it went on, and as the weeks went by, then it was kind of, well, it's probably going to be Wembley Arena. It's going to be Wembley Stadium. Oh, there's going to be another gig in Philadelphia. Oh, there's going to be 2 billion people watching on the television. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger as it got closer to the event. But yeah, I said yes to it in the January.
Because I read that you found the whole experience quite terrifying.
Mm,
But what I'm interested to know is, I, obviously we didn't perform at anything like Live Aid, nothing like that at all. But we were very fortunate to have performed in front of tens of thousands of people at open air gigs.
yeah,
And psychologically, my preparation for the gig always changed because I knew that we were performing to tens of thousands of people instead of just a few thousand people in an indoor arena or in a theater or something like that. So my
yeah.
my mindset changed to prepare. Given the size of this event, did you prepare differently for this gig than any other normal gig?
Um, I didn't know how to really.
Okay,
I didn't know how to prepare. I played Wembley Stadium before with the year before with Elton
okay,
on a Radio One gig. So I'd played in front of that many people before. It wasn't physically the amount of people. I think it was more about the company the company you were in. The some of your heroes and these icons that you were sharing a stage with. It was that was quite sort of awe-inspiring. Um, and also you were also aware of the fact that it was kind of, although it was such a major event, that it was operating on the very limits of what was technically possible all the time. Just the broadcast things and everything that was going on, to the extent that there was a stage that was supposed to revolve. Well, it did revolve, but it was supposed to revolve automatically. There was a motor underneath and blah blah. It's supposed to do that. Whereas in reality, on the day, you were aware there were people underneath pushing it round because because the motor had broken, and there were just things going wrong left, right, and centre that you were aware of, and so you didn't know whether you were going to go on stage to whether any of you hadn't seen your gear, you hadn't seen your crew, you didn't know whether any of the gear was going to be working when you went on stage, and most of mine was, fortunately. So there's only so much you can prepare for. In the end, it's just a matter of, it's just like jumping off a cliff, walking on
mm,
stage. I don't know if you find that that's what it is. You just have to jump
mm.
and deal with whatever happens. And as to this day, that's kind of to much lesser extent, but to this day, every time I go on stage, it's that. It's just take a deep breath, on you go,
Yeah, yeah,
get on with it.
yeah. Okay, let's go back to what we were talking about before when with your third album, because after Live Aid, if I'm correct in saying you had one more top 10 hit, and then all of a sudden, Nick, it just it's not like you disappeared. I don't like
Mm.
using the word disappeared, but in terms of chart success, it went very quiet for you. And it was like
Yep.
one minute you were there and the next you were almost not there anymore. So is what you were saying about the third album, was
Yeah.
that the issue, do you think?
I think that's something to do with it. I mean, I think I released a single up front of the album just to keep people happy,
Okay.
but then I was chucked in the studio, and I insisted that I was going to do it on my own this time because the first two were produced by Peter Collins.
Okay.
Um, so I said, well, I'm going to do this myself. That's my control freak coming out again. And I was very happy with the final result, but it was kind of I did spend an awful lot of time and an awful lot of money making that record because I could, it was like a kid with the biggest train set in the world. It was like fantastic, yay! So yeah, it took too long, and it was in danger of disappearing up my own backside at some points during the recording process. So and time is a really valuable thing in this business, and people forget real quick. So when I did eventually come out, there were loads of people ready to take my place, and although it was okay, I think it went silver the third album, but it was by no means what was expected of me.
Hmm. I always felt, again, forgive me for being sort of slightly self-indulgent, but I always felt that we lost our momentum.
Mm,
I believe that, we charted, we had a top 20 hit with our first single, and I believed for us to keep the momentum, the second single had to be better than the first. And I
yeah.
believed it wasn't. And then when we had our top 10 hits, which we desperately needed at the time, we needed the next single to be even better. And I felt that the decision that was made to release what was our fifth single was again the wrong decision. And I just felt we were losing momentum all the time. And I found it really frustrating. So, do you think you lost your momentum?
Yeah, I mean, as I kind of explained before, it was it that that's part of the problem with the first two albums being like less than 9 months apart.
Yeah.
It had all the activity in that little bit, and then like 2 years nothing, and then the next one came out. Whereas if the second album had happened right bang in the middle of that, there would have been a kind of yeah, as you say, a momentum carrying it forward. But but it did. Yeah, hey, it didn't, and it wasn't, and so what?
Okay. Yeah. 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 So, did there ever come a time when you decided it was the right time to take a back seat and just purely concentrate on producing and writing for other artists?
Yeah, that was. Although it wasn't, I wasn't. It wasn't totally my decision. I was half pushed and a half jumped. Really, it
Okay.
was. I just released my fourth album. It's 1989. I was on tour with Elton John, around Europe, um, and it was obvious the writing was on the wall. Obviously, I had four album options with MCA, and it was up. So and that was over, and they weren't going to ask for a fifth, and I kind of knew that halfway through the tour. So I thought, well, okay, what am I going to do? I had a 2-year-old,
Mm.
so I thought, do I want to be traveling around the world, carrying on doing this, especially when I'm not getting the kind of the the instant gratification that I was before. You release an album, people love it, people buy it, but yeah, it's all brilliant. That wasn't happening, so I thought, well, okay, I love making records, I love writing songs. Let's just do that, and I'll do it for other people. And I believed all most of the stress in my life came from actually being an artist. So I thought, well, that'd be a good compromise. I'll just write and produce. So yeah, that was 1989. So and I got very lucky very early, in that period with the one and only in Chesney.
Yeah, yeah,
It's kind of a false dawn. I thought, well, this okay, it's going to be like this. This is easy. I just write a song, people record it, and it goes to number one. Fantastic. Of course, that didn't happen for the next sort of 8 or 9 years, and there was a lot of frustration and a lot of politics involved in making other people's records, which is why ultimately I kind of just in '99 went, all right, I'm going to make my own records again. It's much easier, actually.
Okay, I have one last question for you because we're rapidly running out of time. I know it took you a short while to make up your mind about 80s revival tours. I personally have shied away from doing any sort of reunion tours. It's not my cup of tea. I think the
Yeah.
90s is completely different from the 80s because there is a romance to the 80s. With the 90s, I think it was too manufactured for me, and I just feel that I've had my time, I've done it, I've
Yeah.
experienced, I'm very grateful for it, but I would never ever step back into it. For you guys, I think it's completely different because it was such a great era for music with so many great bands, so much great British success as well. So why did you decide to step back into it and go out on tour?
Well, touring wise, it was just because I had new music out. So actually playing live again was a no brainer. I was going to do that, and that was great. And I did it at sort of obviously a much lower level for a couple of years at the beginning of the 2000s. But then sort of mid 2000s, the revival tours started, and I started getting telephone calls and saying, "Do you want to fancy doing this?" And there was nothing in me that wanted to do it. I just didn't want to do it because it's almost like you're admitting to yourself that, well, my career's over. I might as well just,
Yeah,
just do this, just earn a bit of money, and to pretend it's still 1984 or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
And also, you're really trying to when you're trying to produce new music and music you've worked really hard on and you're really proud of. You think, oh, that this distracts,
mm,
just doing the revival tours. It's almost like saying my new stuff's not important. Don't bother with that. Here I am, doing my thing. And I thought like that for a long time, and you spend a lot of time kind of almost resenting the hits. But then several things happen. One is that uh, I saw my mates out there doing it, having an absolute blast, and walking on stage in front of 25, 30,000 people at festivals and stuff. And I'm sort of playing to 400 or 500 in a club, and it was just great, and that's my thing. But then you think, well, where's the real harm? Because I can't. There is no way I'm going to get the same kind of exposure for my new stuff than I got from the old stuff, and I'm not prepared to pay that price anyway because there's a price that we've talked about.
mm.
Um, so why don't I just have my cake and eat it? Why don't I just do the shows where I'm just playing the hits and everybody knows what they're there for, and just having a great time and get remunerated very nicely for it. Let's do that. And so at that point, when I started doing it, it absolutely, it was a lot of fun, and I've made friendships with people that I really didn't know very well at all back in the day, because you just kind of you're off doing your thing and they're off doing their thing. So I've made some great friends. I've had some great laughs. And I'm still doing it now, and it's just kind of I've learned to be really grateful for those songs and for the opportunities they've given me.
Brilliant. Nick, listen, thank you so much for spending the time with me today. It's been fantastic talking to you. I've really enjoyed it. And listen, the very best of luck in the future because I know you've got a tour coming out. You're going to be doing lots and lots. So good luck and thank you so much again. Lovely to meet you.
Thanks, Ali. Lovely talking to you, mate.
Okay, take care. Bye bye.
Ta-da.
My thanks to Nik Kershaw. If you enjoyed today's watch, I would be absolutely thrilled if you would please consider subscribing to The Accidental Pop Star. What it basically means is that you will just be helping me build this channel and also bring you more interviews going forward. It doesn't cost anything. All you have to do is press that little red button. Guys, we are done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and I will see you again very soon. Take care. Bye for now.